Okay, so I had a couple people asking how I make the DCS maps. So I figured I would just go ahead and make one. Nothing crazy, just a small thing. Put it together. So first step you need to do is go in the mission editor. Create a new mission. This is where you're going to pick which map you want to do. Let's just do Afghanistan for now because it's new. And this is also where you pick the factions. You can always change this later, but this just shows up which countries are going to be on the red force, which are going to be on the blue. Press OK. So first off, let's set up the dynamic spawns because that's what's going to allow us to essentially be able to pick up a plane from any of the different areas. So let's pick Kandahar. Let's set it to blue. Click on full info, and we're going to allow dynamic spawns. We're going to allow hot start because I don't feel like starting up. And we can do the same thing with the heliport as well. Make that dynamic. And then let's do Bost. Set that blue. And once again, click those on. There's a lot more stuff you can do in there, but that's outside the scope of what this video is about. Okay, so next thing, let's place down some units. So for this mission, let's say we want to get an F-16. So come over here to the left side, click on the plane icon, and you can place one down. Now, by default, it's going to place an A-10 just because alphabetical order. You'll notice that all the yellow planes are ones that are owned and can be flown. So let's place the F-16. Let's give it a name. Just call it F-16. And we'll do the same thing for the pilot name. And then make sure to set the skill to client so that way somebody can actually fly it. A human can fly it, not AI. Also make sure to select dynamic spawn template. This will allow us to spawn this aircraft at all the different runways that allow for dynamic spawns. You'll notice that this spawns is up in the air. We want to spawn on the ground. So we're going to do takeoff from ramp. This is essentially just the equivalent of takeoff from parking spot. Now this will start you cold. So, if you don't know how to start up a plane, maybe do takeoff from parking hot or takeoff from runway or something like that. So in order to add a waypoint, select your unit, and then over here on the right, click add. Now every time you left click, it's going to place a waypoint. Now let's say we want to do two things. Let's say we want to take out a target. So let's just put it right here. And then let's say we want to shoot down a plane. So we'll turn this way. Now selecting on these waypoints allows us to adjust where they are in the relative position. So you'll notice that this one is almost 7,000 feet in the air. We don't want that. We just want to put it on the ground. So we'll set it to 0. And we'll do the same thing for this one. Don't want it up in the sky. We'll just put it on the ground, so 0. So at this first waypoint, let's say we want to destroy a building. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come over here and we're going to click on this kind of like bridge icon. It's going to be the static object. So we can go in here and now let's do structures and we'll do chemical tank A. Yeah, sure, that'll be perfect. So now let's say what we want to do at waypoint 1 is blow up this target. So we'll select the target. I always like to give it a name. We'll just call it chemical tank. Let's also add, let's say once we blow this up, that there's going to be a plane that spawns in that we have to shoot down. So we're going to go over here, select a plane, make sure it's set to whatever your opposite force of what you are. So in this case, I'm blue, so we'll make this red. And let's just make it a MiG-29. And you set the difficulty of whatever you want them to be. Just keep in mind the DCS AIs, they're pretty good. So, if you want just a casual experience, I'd recommend rookie or trained. If you want something that's meant to be difficult, veteran or ace, we'll just put it on rookie for now. So down here we can adjust all sorts of different types of things, including their altitude and their parameters upon which they will act. Basically the logic system that the AI uses. So type turning point is fine. Altitude, let's put them up at 10,000 feet. Now this is 10,000 above sea level. If you wanted it above ground level, because if you notice down in the bottom left here, you can see the altitude. If you notice Afghanistan, pretty high off of sea level. So if you want it 10,000 feet above the ground, you can switch this to AGL, and now it will be at 10,000 feet. For the speed, it's in knots. So whatever you want it to be, just keep in mind, I'm pretty sure they do true speed, right? So for example, if you place a plane at 30,000 feet and you want him going 400, the indicated speed is going to be like 200 or 300 or something like that. So just keep that in mind. But at lower altitudes, it doesn't matter as much. 430 will be fine. And then we want to give him a waypoint just to make sure he's flying towards me, set him that way. So if you wanted to adjust the pylons and give it weapons and stuff like that, you would click over here in the top right, payload. Here we can see the plane. Right click, and you can add weapons onto all of these. The only thing I'll give him is maybe a fuel tank. and then we can change the skin to, let's find a fun one. There we go, sure. So now, how do we make him spawn in after we've destroyed the tank? So first things first, I always like to give them names. So we'll change the group to MiG, and we will change the pilot name also to MiG. Now, in order to get him to spawn in late, surprise, surprise, we're going to have to click late activation, turn that on. So he will not spawn in by default. So now to bring this all together and actually set up the triggers and stuff like that, we're going to go to the top left up here, set rules for trigger. And this is where we're going to create the trigger in this box. And then we're going to set the conditions and the actions afterwards, basically the cause and effect. So we're going to click new. And we're going to call it, what did I call it? Chemical Tank Destroyed. Okay, so we're going to go into the conditions, and this is where we're going to set that once the chemical tank is destroyed, that something else will happen. So we're going to click new, and we're going to select the type of trigger as unit dead. Select the unit, in this case it's chemical tank, and then we're going to create new, and we want two things to happen. Let's say we want a message to pop up. So we're going to go create a new action and then do message to, you can either do message to all or message to country. I normally just do message to all since we're normally all on the same side. And we'll just say, well done, chemical tank destroyed. Down here you have some options as to what you want the text to look like. Seconds is the amount of seconds it'll be up on screen. So we'll just say, we'll keep it at 10 by default. Clear view, I believe, just gets rid of the background and just puts the text. I normally don't select that. And then start delay is if we want a little bit of a delay so that the trigger activates and then maybe a second or two later this starts. We'll put a delay of 2 seconds. Okay, so the other thing we want to happen is that plane to spawn in. So now in the actions, click new, and we're going to do group activate. And we're going to select MiG as the group. So now let's say what happens to that MiG. So now we'll do a new one, MiG destroyed, new condition. You could do this a number of different ways. Because it's just one MiG, we're just going to do unit dead. And once again, we're going to select the MiG. Now what we're going to have happen here, we're going to have a message pop up. We'll do that again, MiG destroyed. But then we'll also have if you wanted to add music, you would go to sound to all. And this is essentially the same thing, except a much more simplified version. Once again, you would go into open, into your directory, and you would select it there. The last thing we want to add is a flag, and we're going to use these flags to determine once the mission is over. We're going to do new, and we're going to do flag increase. We're going to use flag number 5. You can just pick 1 through 100, I believe is the cutoff. Same thing with the value. I believe it cuts off at 100, so it has to be between 1 and 100. Flags just hold information. They are essentially on-off switches, but they can be used kind of different ways. That's a simplification, but they can be used a bunch of different ways. We're going to come back to that, so just keep that how it is. Now, what I always recommend doing when you're creating things is save. Hit Control S and save that. Give it a name. It'll just save where it saves all your mission files. So let's say we want multiple missions. Let's also add a Chinook in here. So we're going to click on the helicopter icon, set it to US, place a Chinook down. Once again, give it a name, set it as client so that we can fly it. And we're going to spawn it on the ground. And of course, once again, make sure turn on dynamic spawns. So that way we can spawn either here or we can spawn over here at Bost. So much like one of the missions I did before, let's say we want to pick up a couple troops. So we'll go to the ground unit over here and we'll do infantry and we'll just add a couple dudes standing like this. And we'll give them the group name of infantry. Now, in order to get them to board helicopters, ground vehicles, stuff like that, you have to go down here into the advanced waypoint actions, click add, perform task, embark to transport. In this case, we want them to board only the CH-47, so we're going to click that. The radius is just how close you need to be to the infantry in order for them to get into the helicopter. So 656 is fine. Okay, so now let's also give them a waypoint right over here. What we're going to do is we're going to drop them off and then they'll walk to this waypoint. Lastly, we want a trigger to determine that they've been dropped off successfully. So we'll go over here to kind of like, it looks like a circle with like an X in it. Click that, and then we're going to click down on the screen. It adds a big trigger zone. You have 2 options for triggers. You can do circular, so you can make it as big as small as you want. Or you can do a quad point, and you can edit the box like this. Oh, and of course, give it a name. We'll just call it troop drop off area. So now let's do the triggers for that. So once again, come back up here. And we're going to do infantry dropped off. So once again, you have a couple options as to how you want to do this one. We'll just do all of group and zone. And we'll have the group as infantry and the zone as the troop drop off. So what happens is we'll get a message that will pop up. Troops have been dropped off. And then again, we will add flag increase. Flag number 5 is also going to go up by a value of 10. So in order to add the images in there, we're going to do new, picture to all. And so first we're going to have to select it from our directory. So I just have one of the pictures that I think I probably used in the most recent video. Seconds is just how long it's going to be on screen. Start delay, again, set that to 2. Horizontal and vertical alignment. This is just going to be where on the screen it is. So I normally like to do, for the horizontal alignment, right side and keep it vertically centered, which will put it kind of where my mouse is right here. And size, I like to make it just a little bit smaller, maybe 70 or 80%. We'll do 80. And then percent of the original size. You could do of the percent of the window size, which is just your monitor, but I like to keep it just like that. Okay, so now once we drop off the infantry and they're out of the helicopter and they're on the ground, we're going to get a message that says troops have been dropped off. Flag 5 is going to go up by a value of 10, and we're going to get this picture. So the reason I do it this way is because this way it gives you the option to do missions kind of in whatever order you wish to do them in. If we do this one first, flag 5 goes up by 10. If we do this one first, flag 5 still goes up by 10. So either way, whichever one we start with, the value will always be 10 at first once we complete the first mission. So once again, to see that now in action, we're going to create a trigger, new one, and we'll say mission 1 complete. And we're going to do flag equals. So we want flag 5 to equal 10. If flag 5 equals 10, then we get a message that pops up, mission 1 completed. And then we'll do 1 for mission 2, final mission. Then we'll say flag equals, so flag 5, 5. Now let's say equals 20. Then we'll get another message that says final mission complete. We're going to add actually a map marker. So the way you want to do that is click draw, and you have options of what you want to do. So let's just add an icon. We're going to add this. This will be kind of our LZ icon. We're going to click that, and we'll change the color to blue. Now, one thing, in order to see it on the screen, and once you're in the game, you need to make sure that it's set to blue. So this means blue coalition will be able to see this, or red if you're on red, or if you only want spectators to be able to see it, or you only want the author, whatever. So the next thing we're going to add is a text box. Click here, just click on the screen. Once again, we can change the color. This is the color of the font, and this is going to be the color that's kind of on the inside there. So we'll just make it blue again. We'll actually call this landing zone just so we can see it a little bit better. And then once again, we'll set it blue. If you come over to this check right here, you can set game options. So if you don't want a couple things, like if you don't want whoever you're playing with to be able to see the assets that are on the ground, you set it to map only, my aircraft, fog of war. This just means we can't see him unless our radar can see him. Basically anything data link can see. Allies only is exactly what it sounds like. You can only see allied assets. And then all would just give the option for all. So normally I do fog of war or allies only. We'll just do fog of war for this one. A couple other things, if you want civilian traffic turned on or off, I normally keep it off just because it helps the frames a little bit. And then lastly, battle damage assessment. This is that screen that pops up on the side that tells you when you've hit and destroyed stuff. I like to turn that off just because I like to do my own BDA, I guess. So now once you've set all that up, I guess we can look at the weather. Click this cloud icon up here. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff, including changing the time of day, changing the exact date, and they have a bunch of weather presets. I'm just going to keep it clear. And I normally add just a little bit of wind, anywhere between 6 to 10 knots. Just keep in mind, if you do have AI that are taking off from airfields, the AI will always fly with the wind going towards you. And so that's how they decide which runway is active. So if you wanted AI to take off starting here, going this way, you would need the wind to be pointing in the opposite direction. With all that said, let me go ahead and do a little demo now so we can see that it all does in fact work. All right, so now that we are in, I'm actually running this as a little multiplayer server. Now that we're in, we're going to select the Blue Coalition because that's where we have all the stuff. We're going to click join. Let's do, in order to access the dynamic slots, we're going to click up here and you'll see we have all available options. So let's do Kandahar and select our aircraft, which in this case is the F-16. And then let's just give it like, I don't know, give it some AGMs to blow up this tank, some AMRAAMs to shoot down the MiG that we want to shoot down. Okay, so I'm going to fly over to the waypoint, which is on steer point 1. I'm going to blow up the tank, and then we'll see the MiG will spawn in, and then I can shoot that down. So let's go ahead and lock that up, and we'll shoot our 2 Mavericks over at it. Oh, and there we go. I only needed one. But there you go. You see we get the text. Now we should have our MiG-29 that has spawned in. Oh, that's funny. Okay, well, the MiG just crashed into the ground, but this is actually surprisingly difficult without track IR. I feel for Tony. But yeah, it just crashed into the ground. You saw we got the text there that says we completed it. So there you go. That is mission 1 that has been completed. Now we can hop into the Chinook and we'll do mission number 2. Okay, so to get these guys in, we're going to do the / airborne troops, embarking, and then infantry. And then they'll say they're going to get in. I don't think we need to have the door open. You'll need the door open for cargo, but yeah, no, they can get in without it. Over here's our landing zone. And I'm just going to add a waypoint quickly. Okay, I got my waypoint in, so now I'm just going to fly over there. Alright, let's get these troops down on the ground before I crash. Alright, so this is the rough LZ kind of area. You'll notice that the trigger has not been activated yet. This is because technically the troops aren't inside. I think they're just kind of in a limbo right now of their actual space. But once we get them outside of the helicopter, then the trigger will activate and they'll spawn in. Okay, that's gonna have to be good enough. / airborne troops, disembark, infantry. And there you go. Final mission complete, yay, and we get the picture that shows up. This has been a very basic tutorial. I hope this has been helpful. If you're just looking to getting into mission making, this should help you with at least some of the basic kind of stuff. Please do leave comments if you have any questions about more complicated stuff, I guess, and I can make other videos about more complicated topics. This was just meant to be kind of something to get people started and not be anything too crazy. So yeah, again, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I will try to get to them as quickly as I can.